Hi friends, it's Sophia and welcome to Sophia's Turning 50, where we connect, tell stories, and embrace our age no matter what it is, but especially if we're turning 50. Today we are going to talk about being a Gen Xer, especially in the early 1980s. In health and wellness, we're going to talk about getting a colonoscopy and other appointments you should be making. And let's see, oh yes, I have another 1980s show and tell. First up, we're going to talk about being a young Gen Xer. And I mean, being a Gen Xer in the early 80s. And so this kind of goes along with embracing your age and being glad that you're here, because I want to talk about what it was like to think that there was going to be a nuclear war at any moment. So I lived in a rural area outside of San Antonio, and I can't be the only, Gen Xer that laid in their bed at night waiting for, the Soviets to drop a bomb on my head. So, we lived, like I said, we lived outside of San Antonio. And I remember, asking my parents, like, well, would San Antonio be a target? Because I knew there was a bunch of military posts. There were like 5 in the early 80s. And my parents were like, yeah, maybe. And that was not comforting. And I can't believe, they could have said things like, well, maybe Washington, D.C., or maybe New York City or Los Angeles, because that's where all the population is. But no, maybe San Antonio would be a target. So that did not make me feel better, as I said. And so, there I was just in bed waiting for the bomb to drop on San Antonio and knowing what I knew about nuclear bombs, that the radiation would come and get us. So, but I didn't die, and we didn't die, and we survived the Soviets. And so, let's embrace that. We're still here. So that's, something that I swear when I was in my, 11, I did not think that I would live into adulthood. Okay. Do you guys remember the movie The Day After? That came out in 1983, and the description of it online is it's the result of a devastating nuclear holocaust on a small town in Kansas. And I think I watched part of it, and I remember then I had to go to bed, but I kind of was standing in the hallway looking around to see how it ended, and I just remember like the guy holding out an orange at the end. And I think there was a lot of promotion for the movie because I remember it vividly, but I don't think I watched it. But it was like constantly being promoted on television and showing trailers, which were scary. And I looked it up online, and it said 100 million people watched it. And it was the highest rated television film of all time until 2009. So I don't know what replaced it in 2009, but I'm going to guess it wasn't a nuclear holocaust movie. It's probably like a climate change holocaust movie. Anyway, so there was that. There's also Red Dawn, which was about a group of teenagers fighting the Soviets in their own town. And so again, it's just like this constant drumbeat of, we're all going to die in a nuclear holocaust caused by the Soviets. In the 80s, my favorite songs were, or especially in the early 80s, my favorite songs were very pessimistic. So I remember one of my favorites was called World Destruction. And the lyrics that always stay in my mind were, world destruction, your life ain't nothing, the human race is becoming a disgrace. So I sang that, as a 13-year-old and thought it was fantastic, and it really encapsulated my feelings inside. And I actually remember dancing to that song. There was a a nightclub in San Antonio called Image Nightclub. I think that was the name of it. And it was actually a dance club for teenagers. I don't know how they checked ID, or if you had 25-year-olds in there trolling for 14-year-olds, but there we were. I was 14. I don't know why I was able to go to a nightclub complete with like flashing lights. It was dark. It was dance floor dancing, people, milling around, crowded. That 14 seems a bit young to me now to be doing something like that, but this was the 80s. Anyway, since we talk about birthdays here, I looked up to see which Gen Xers were turning 50 this month. And so the first one is Winona Ryder, one of the queens of the 80s. She actually turned 50 in like October 29th or something, but I had to include her in this month. And the other person is Christina Applegate, whose birthday is towards the end of this month. So happy birthday, happy 50th birthday to them. And then I also have a couple of friends who had birthdays this month who are Gen Xers. Lisa in Colorado had a birthday in November, and so did Catherine in Texas. So happy birthday to you guys too. Speaking of our aging Gen Xers, I did want to talk about getting a colonoscopy and some other appointments that you should be planning for now that you're getting close to 50. Okay, so I had the colonoscopy this summer, and it was not that big of a deal. And I almost want to start backwards. So the actual procedure itself, it was nothing. You go in, it's a half-day production, but the procedure is nothing. You have to be driven there by someone. They give you, I think it's like propofol, just something that puts you mostly out, but it's easy to bring you out of. And then I swear it was like I was in the room. They laid me on my side. They put on the mask or the IV. I don't even remember what they did. And then they were like, okay, I don't know, said something. And then the next thing I know, they're wheeling me out. Okay, we're going to put you in the recovery room now. You need to rest, wait for about 15 minutes and you'll be ready to go. That's what it's like. Okay, that is actually what a colonoscopy is like. Now, the prep for the colonoscopy is a little bit more of a production. So starting like 3 days ahead of time, you have to start watching what you eat, and you can't eat certain things, which I don't remember what, but it gives you plenty of stuff that you can eat. And you probably have to stop eating stuff like vegetables, which, it wasn't that hard for me. Even though I do try to eat healthy, it's not that hard for me not to eat those things. And then I think 2 days ahead of time, it's about the same. Maybe you have to cut out a couple more things. But so you just have to monitor, they give you a list of what you can eat and not eat, and then you just, do that for a couple of days. Then the last day is where it gets tricky because you're supposed to fast the entire day, except for a few things. So you can drink coffee, which is, I drink like 4 or 5 cups of coffee each day. So that was good for me. And then in the afternoon, I drank chicken bone broth. That's, comes in little powder packages you can get at the store. And, I just warm it up with hot water, and I kind of kept drinking that. It's kind of like having soup, a very light soup. Jello is one of the things that you can eat. So I had that too. So yes, it wasn't great, but there are still some things you can eat. And then comes the big kicker where you have to drink this really gross stuff, and it makes, flushes your body out. I'll just leave it at that. And it did flush your body out, and it is very gross. It is hard to drink. But what you have to remember is that if you don't do this, you could have cancer growing in your colon that you may not know about until it's stage 4 and you die 2 weeks after it gets discovered. So what is worse, 3 days of annoyance and a half day of, a big production, or, you are saying goodbye to your family 2 weeks after you found out you had cancer? So maybe that's an exaggeration, but get with the program and get your colonoscopy. There's some other things that you have to do after you turn 50. And I should say colonoscopy is recommended after age 45. So talk to your doctor to see if you can get that, even if you're not 50 yet. Some other things, I wrote them down, that you have to do when you're 50. Get the shingles vaccine. That is, I think it's a 2-dose vaccine, and you're recommended to get that after you turn 50. If you're a woman, you need to be getting your mammogram. If you're my age and you're not getting a mammogram, I don't know what to say. Get a mammogram. And I think once you turn 50, you're supposed to get it every year. My mom died of breast cancer in the 80s. And so I've been getting a mammogram since I started when I was 20, because she was diagnosed when she was 29 and she died when she was 33. So since I was 20, that was when I had my first mammogram, and I've been having them annually probably since I was like 40 maybe. Anyway, and I get a 3D mammogram in the summer, and then I get an MRI mammogram at the end of December, because, let's see, I have dense breasts, and so like the 3D mammogram is important. And then like the MRI, I think also helps with that, but also since I have the history of breast cancer, I can't remember. Again, I often forget the medical reasons why I'm doing things, but I know that I knew at one point and was very comfortable with my decision. And so I get it twice a year. Because as I have said many times, I'm very vigilant about these things. And so I have my twice a year breast checkups. So please get that done. And then if you're a man, you need to have a check for prostate cancer. So I don't know how that works, but talk to your doctor, get your prostate checked. Okay, so now we've got our 80s show and tell. And I have something from the early 80s, since that's what we were talking about today. This is from 1980. Ready? This is a T-ball trophy. It says Somerset 1980 All-Stars T-ball Sophia Harbor. Let's see if you can see that. I don't think you're going to be able to. Oh, maybe. Anyway, why do I have a T-ball trophy? I don't know, but it's currently sitting in the we have a little window in our garage for some. Oh, I think the people before used the garage as an actual office. And so I just one day I was like, well, if I'm going to have a box of trophies from childhood, why am I sitting them in a box? I'll just put them all out in this windowsill. So it's sitting on a windowsill in the garage, along with some other trophies from the 80s from like playing volleyball and I don't know, other stuff. But I thought this was fun. So there you go. I was worried about being nuked by the Soviets and playing T-ball at the same time. Okay, and that's everything for today. Remember to get all of your medical checkups that you need and to embrace your age, no matter what it is. See you next time.